Hi, everyone. My name is Erica Lehman. I work in the financial aid office. My official title is a student services specialist, and I'm joined today by Denise Perez, who's going to be talking about the Promise program later on in the session. So let's go ahead and get started on financial aid. It's my favorite. So one of the first things I like to talk about is just the types of financial aid, just making folks aware of the different types of financial aid available when they do a financial aid application. So I'm going to tailor this information specifically to the financial aid types that are available at Irvine Valley College. So when a student does a financial aid application, there's four types of financial aid they're essentially making themselves eligible for: grants, scholarships, loans, and something called work study. Um, if a student wants to receive financial aid every single year, they do need to reapply every single year. So this pertains to grants, to scholarships, to loans, to work study, as well as our Irvine Valley Promise program, which we are going to talk about later in the presentation. Okay. So grants are fantastic types of financial aid because there isn't any expectation for students to pay them back. As long as they stay enrolled in their classes, these grants are designed to help students with the cost of attendance. So food and housing, personal expenses, transportation, books and supplies, all of the grant money can be used towards that. So students do not have to report what they intend to use the financial aid for. Um, the criteria and award amounts are going to vary based on their junior and sophomore year GPA. It's going to vary based on their need. It also is going to vary on sometimes the type of program that they are enrolled in at the college. Other types of financial aid, or sorry, other types of grants include the Cal Grant, the Pell Grant, and something called the California College Promise Grant. It's a fee waiver that automatically waives the cost of tuition, and it's separate from the Irvine Valley Promise program. So what's really nice about that is students don't have to have high need in order to get their tuition covered by the California College Promise Grant. Um, I do have a disclaimer at the bottom because, again, if students drop all of their classes and they've already received a financial aid payment, then we may need to work with them to pay some of it back. But again, as long as students are staying enrolled in their classes, they're passing their classes, they are entitled to keep the grants that they are paid. Okay. Here is some more numbers, but what I really like to demonstrate in this slide specifically is financial aid is stackable. We have students who receive their tuition covered by the Promise Grant. They get a Cal Grant on top of their Pell Grant, and if they enroll in 15 units and they're eligible for that Cal Grant, they can get $4,000 per semester. So again, financial aid is stackable. Getting one does not prevent you from getting another type of financial aid. As long as a student has need and they haven't met that need, they can continue to receive grants. Okay. The Cal Grant specifically, I like to talk about in greater detail because this is a type of aid that's available specifically to California residents. So students who graduate with a high school diploma, who have a junior year, sophomore year GPA are eligible to get the Cal Grant if they meet certain income and asset thresholds. Now here's the cool part. So every counselor I know, every parent I know pushes that March 2nd deadline. And it's really great, especially for students who are also considering UC Cal State. But here's the nice thing. That same entitlement for Cal State's UCs is actually extended to September 2nd for California community colleges. So this is really great to keep in mind so that if a student, maybe their circumstances change a little bit, and maybe they missed that deadline, this is another really great way to get Cal Grant at a California community college. So we get that student success completion grant, and in addition to that access award, still a nice chunk of change, especially when you got Promise to cover things. So um, there's also the Foster Youth Access Award. That's $4,000 to $6,000 per year for current and former foster youth as well. So again, financially it is stackable, and that is such great news. Okay. The Pell Grant is a federal type of aid, and this is for undergraduate students. Um, and what's great about the Pell Grant is there isn't really any kind of deadline attached to it because the 25-26 FAFSA is going to stay open until June 30th, 2026. We don't want students to wait that long to submit their FAFSA, but this is just goes to show that Students can become eligible anytime that they complete their financial aid application. We get their file verified, we check their enrollment. We can disperse Pell Grant funds retroactively if needed, but with the Cal Grant, we can't always do that. Okay. In addition to Pell Grant eligibility, students could also qualify for the Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, as well as work study funds. Talking about the California College Promise Grant, there is no unit maximum or minimum that's attached to it. So what this means is maybe you have a student who wants to maybe dabble their toe in like summer classes, for example. A student who's eligible for the California College Promise Grant can do a financial aid application for 24-25, get the College Promise Grant to have their tuition covered in the summer because there's no unit or minimum or maximum that's attached to eligibility for this Promise Grant, which is really nice. It's the most common type of award that we offer at California community colleges, and it's a really, really great program for students that have need. Okay. Now, scholarships. I like to talk about scholarships because everybody should apply for a scholarship. So for my high school seniors out there, maybe high school juniors, if you're in this presentation, parents, here is my best piece of advice. Start local, okay? Look for the opportunities that are not only unique to your high school, but also your district. Because you think about it this way, how many students have access to that same scholarship that you have access to, right? And so the smaller the pool of applicants, the much higher success rate you're going to have. So start local first and then build out from there. The district, Orange County, California, and then maybe let's look at the federal opportunities through FAFSA. Also think about what's your specific major. Sometimes there are scholarships that are unique to a student's specific major. So we really like to push students, hey, talk to your high school counseling or college and career centers. Again, because those applications, they've already vetted to make sure that there's a smaller pool of applicants. So that's a really great strategy. And also, please never ever pay to apply for a scholarship because it's probably a scam. Okay. Now we're going to talk about loans. Students are able to take out loans at the community college level. There's 3 things that they have to complete first before they can even touch loan money. They do need to complete something called loan entrance counseling. They also need to sign a master promissory note that basically says, hi, my name's Erica, and I promise to pay this money back. Okay. Those 2 steps can be completed on studentaid.gov. And then with the financial aid office at IVC, we'll have students complete the direct loan request form so that they can specifically say, hey, this is the exact amount that I want to take, that I want to borrow at IVC. Okay. I do like to have a slide that kind of clarifies the total amount that a student can borrow because it changes based on their level in school and whether or not they have, and their dependency determination. So for example, most students are probably going to fall into this category right here because unless you are married over the age of 24 and have babies, you probably are a freshman in your first year of college. So the maximum amount of combined subsidized and unsubsidized loan that you could borrow is going to be $5,500. And so we really like to tell students like, hey, maybe let's take advantage of other types of programs, see what scholarships we have, see what grants we have available. Maybe you qualify for Irvine Valley Promise. We really want to push those first because these loans do accrue interest. It is a lower interest rate, and there is a 6-month grace period, but why take out loans? Why have that that interest if you don't need it, Okay. The last type of financial aid I'm going to talk about is something called federal work study, and this is a really great opportunity for students. We have so many students who take advantage of on-campus employment, and the nice thing is there are some remote options as well through things like School on Wheels, different tutoring opportunities. So we'd like to advise students like, hey, maybe consider an on-campus position to help offset some of your educational costs. So the financial aid office does hire some work study students, but for the most part, it's going to be the different departments that do the hiring, but we can let students know if they are eligible for work study funds, and we have a student interest form that we have students complete that we will pull applicants from sometimes at different points in the year. Okay. I do like to mention that these positions are filled on a first come, first served basis. So, another really great piece of advice is if you or your student are considering on campus employment, we recommend asking about positions in the summer because that's typically when we have a little less traffic. We have a bunch of students that just transition. So, that's a really great time to do training is during the summer. Okay. Now, how do we apply for all these types of aid? I'm so glad you didn't ask. The first application is the free application for federal student aid called the FAFSA, and this is what's going to determine eligibility for both federal and state aid for U.S. citizens and permanent residents. So students who have a valid Social Security number are going to be completing this application on studentaid.gov. Students who are undocumented, students who do not have a valid visa, do not have a valid Social Security number, can complete the California DREAM Act application on dream.csac.ca.gov. If they are AB 540 eligible, meaning they have 3 years of credit, either elementary school, middle school, high school, combination of the three. They need 3 years of credit and a high school diploma, and they can do the California DREAM Act application. Okay. So, some important deadlines. Technically, the official FAFSA is going to be available for the 2024-2025 academic year on December 1st. So, both the FAFSA and the DREAM Act application will be available on December 1st. Now, I have a bunch of tenacious students who have called me and said, Erica, it's already available. And I said, yes, technically it is. The beta version is currently available to all. So if students are tenacious, they want to get it done now, they can do the beta application that will produce a student record that will go out to all of the schools on their school selection list. I just want to keep folks aware that it's not going to bump up our processing because we didn't know this was going to happen until Monday. So you can complete it. We can verify that it's been completed, but in terms of award offers or processing, that's still not going to happen until later on. But we can at least look and maybe give you an estimate of the aid types of aid you're eligible for. Now, March 3rd, 2025, that Monday is going to be the priority deadline for state financial aid eligibility. So, especially for UCs and Cal States, March 3rd is a really great time if your student is maybe considering UC, Cal State, but keeping IVC on the background. That priority consideration deadline is great. Again, for California community colleges, it is extended to September 2nd, but ideally, the sooner students apply, the sooner we can tell them what they're eligible for. So hitting that March 3rd deadline is definitely not a bad idea. But again, both the FAFSA and the California DREAM Act application for 2025 to 2026 will be available until June 30th of 2026, but we don't want to wait that long because we want to qualify for the most amount of financial aid. So I'm going to go into a little bit more of the nitty-gritty of the application, just again, because that's why I'm here. For this new application, it is going to ask for contributor information. So this is a difference that we first started with last year's application. So what this means is the student is going to contribute to their own FAFSA. The student is going to contribute to their own California DREAM Act application. But depending on how they answer the personal circumstance questions, a parent may also be invited to contribute to the application. So what's going to be asked from this contributor? They're going to be asked, what are their assets? What is their financial information, their income information from 2023? Because 2024 has not ended yet, so we can't report that income information just yet. It's also going to ask for the Social Security number of the contributors as well. So just be prepared to provide that information in addition to the month and year of the marital status. So married, separated, divorced, etc. Okay. So the way income information is pulled into the FAFSA specifically is through something called the Future Act Direct Data Exchange. So when a contributor clicks this approve button right here, it's basically saying that they are consenting to provide their tax information directly on the form. And if folks click decline, they will not be eligible for any type of financial aid. Okay, so you have to click approve. This is a mandatory process to add that information in. And what I personally recommend is if a contributor, so the student, the parent, spouse, has never made an FSA ID before, make the FSA ID first, wait a couple of days, and then start working on the form so that you have seamless transition, seamless transfer of this information into the form. Okay. So here's what it's going to look like when we invite parent contributors onto the form. It will have, if the student reports that their parents are married, it will provide the option to invite both parents. However, I recommend just invite one parent. If your parents are married and living together or unmarried and living together, invite one parent. And if a parent two also needs to contribute, then parent one will invite parent two. I find that this works a lot better and kind of makes it easier in terms of how many people need to be making an FSA ID. Okay, so here's another screenshot from the application just to demonstrate that that social security number will need to be provided. If the parent does not have a social security number, they can still make an FSA ID, but the student will type in the parent's mailing address instead, and then whatever functional email address they have to send off the invitation to the form. Okay. So again, just to reiterate what that's going to look like, student completes the personal circumstance questions. Okay. Then they say, okay, you know what? You're under the age of 24. You're not married. You don't have any babies. Let's go ahead and have you invite a parent. The student then enters the parent's first name, last name, date of birth, social security number. If they do not have a social security number, they'll check that box, put in the mailing address, put in a working email address, and invite the parent, then continue through the rest of the form. Okay. If your household has a special circumstance, please reach out to the financial aid office. We understand that sometimes the income from 2023 does not look like 2024. So starting that conversation with us in the summer is really, really great so that we can start doing an appeal, start explaining what your options are in terms of making sure that your student has access to the financial aid that they are eligible for. We have workshops every semester to help students not only complete the application, but they have questions about their file, about doing any kind of appeal or verification. We are here to help, and we genuinely want to help students and make sure that they are eligible and have access to the resources they need. Once the FAFSA and DREAM Act are submitted, students will receive a summary of their responses. They should also make sure that a student aid index number is generated. So sometimes what happens is there's errors on the form, and for whatever reason, that aid index number isn't generated. We want to make sure that once the form is processed, we go back in and make a correction so that that student aid index number gets generated, because that's what we're going to use to determine a student's eligibility for financial aid. They will also get a notification that their application has been received, and they'll be notified to check their student aid portal for that financial aid award letter. So it's going to look something like this. We'll say, hey, dear student, your estimated financial aid award is available. It's been posted. And we tell the student in this notification that your award is based on your enrollment status, your eligibility, and the availability of funding. So this is just kind of a notification to students like, hey, your financial aid award amount may fluctuate depending on if you dropped classes, right? We can't give you the maximum financial aid you're eligible for if you're not enrolled full time. So we try to explain that to students in the award letter notification. What we also do is we're going to explain to students, hey, here's the explicit list of everything you're eligible for. Here's your Pell Grant. Here's your Cal Grant. Here's your California College Promise Grant. If you're in a work study position, we'll post that on there as well. We'll give you an estimation for the entire academic year, assuming you're enrolled full time. So we really want to make sure students have access to the information they need, and it's clear to them the financially that they're going to receive. And again, it may fluctuate, but we will tell students like, hey, here's your payment, here's when you're going to get it. We will try to communicate that, and it's going to be primarily through email that we do that. Okay. And I have a road show. So, one of the things that I personally enjoy is going out to the sites and doing workshops. So, I provide hands on assistance. I'm out at the schools. I'll be at Legacy Magnet Academy, Irvine, Woodbridge, Beckman, Foothill, Northwood, Portola. This is not even an exhaustive list. So, um, I I recommend that you connect with your high school counselors, your college and career center to get a more updated list just in case things change. But I do go out, Irvine Valley College Financial Aid Office does go out to provide assistance to students in the form of hands on workshops. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Denise.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Erica. So welcome everybody. My name is Denise Perez, and I'm an outreach specialist here at Irvine Valley College. In addition to working in outreach, I also work for the Promise program. So Erica gave a lot of great information about financial aid, and I'm sure all you have heard in the past and currently in high school that community college is free through the Promise program. So students who are looking to take the advantage and getting that free tuition should definitely get the information that we will be talking about for the Promise program. So what is the Promise program? What does it cover? So it covers 2 years of free tuition, health fee, and ASIBC fee as well. We also provide a book voucher that is given to students every semester and dedicated counseling services as well. Next slide, please. And how can students apply? So we don't have an official application for students to actually fill out. There's no physical application at all. So the way the students will qualify is you must be a first-time college student. You have to be a California resident or AB 540 eligible. In addition, you must be a full-time enrolled student. So that is about 12 units per semester. You can enroll in more, but you must be at 12 units in order to qualify. Students also need to do the important financial aid application that Erica just mentioned, and that is mandatory. So this program is amazing because it is not income-based. Now, Erica went over a lot of, information and requirements about family incomes and so on. So the program is not looking at income, but it is required students to fill out a financial aid application. So if you are hoping to get advantage and take advantage of the free tuition, it is mandatory for students to fill out a FAFSA or California Dream Act. In addition to that, students must complete the steps to becoming an IVC student. Those steps are posted all over our website. We also have handouts that we give students if you ever see us at lunch or presentations. We do have brochures with all the information, or you can visit our website as well. Next slide, please. And these are the steps. So when I mentioned there is no actual application, this is what you would have to do to apply to the Promise program. So step number 1 is applying. So that is the general CCC application that all students would need to fill out. And then you would need to complete your matriculation steps. So these are the pre-enrollment steps that students can do. You can do these on your own, or you can attend workshops. I would check in with your high school counselor. IVC representatives are always on campuses assisting students with these steps. And then again, submitting that financial aid application. Lastly, as I mentioned before, you would need to register for classes. Students who also complete these 4 steps will also get priority registration, and there is a deadline for the priority registration, and that would be May 6th. Next slide. Now, I wanted to just briefly show a quick timeline on how did this process work and where students should pay attention to throughout actually in the spring semester. So students that will be applying to the Promise program will be seniors. So students that are in 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, you would have to wait in order to apply to IVC to get the Promise program. So keep in mind, this process is generally the same every year. So if you were a junior, just keep in mind this is something you would have to do next year. But seniors, we recommend that you complete your steps between February and April. and register for your classes in May. So when I mean register, you have to go onto your student portal, look at the date that you are given to register for the 12 units, and be sure that you are enrolled in 12 units. Around June and July, summertime, we will be communicating with students about their promise status. So if you did all your steps, submitted the financial aid application, and you are enrolled in 12 units, we will email you letting you know that you got into the program. Now, at any time and point between February and July, you don't know, where you're at with your status, please email us. The program can give you an update where you're at, what you're missing, and confirm that we did indeed receive your financial aid application as well. Next slide. Okay, and here are some tips that we love to share with students. So I have been working with the Promise program. I think I'm going on to 6 years already. So these are some tips that I like to help, tell students to help them with the process. So obviously, number one is completing your steps and submitting the financial aid application, right? But I would say the number one tip that I can give students is check your IVC student email. At times, students don't know. We communicate with students via their IVC student email only, unless they're providing a forwarded email. So when we are sending information about a promise status, we are communicating through your IVC student email. In addition to that, we want you to also be aware when will you be registering for classes, right? So making time to meet with the counselor before that time comes so you are able to register full time and making sure you're meeting those deadlines. I would also like to mention that wait-listed courses do not count towards those 12 units. So for example, you might enroll in 9 units and there's a particular professor or maybe a particular time for a course that you wanted to get, but you are waitlisted. So just be sure to make sure that you are enrolled in 12 units and not have a class on a wait list, because we will not count that towards the 12 units, which is a requirement. Next slide. Okay, so that is all for Promise, but I wanted to invite all our parents and students to our big open house that we host every year, our preview night. That's going to be held April 16th after school from 4 to 8. This is the QR code to register. We had a very successful preview night last year. We had over 3,000 folks attend. We provide Habit Burger for the first 1,500 attendees. So please come join us and learn more about the college, about different support programs, Promise program. Come say hi to Erica and myself. We will all have a booth there. And you can see in the picture, we had over 60 booths last year with a variety of different support programs on campus, majors, clubs. And it's a really neat way to learn about the college in a nice informal way and enjoy a good cheeseburger. So if you wanted to register, we highly encourage to do that early on so you can get those friendly reminders. And if you wanted to get a handout, like I mentioned, please come see us at your lunch. If you see us, we have plenty of these handouts along with our Promise information as well. And then I think on my next slide, we have our contact information, but I know Erica went over a lot of information and I did as well. We wanted to save some time for Q&A, but please take a picture of our contact info. If you have any questions with anything that we talked about today, you can communicate or give us a call at the office as well. I wanted to thank everyone for coming today and to keep in mind that we have one more session tomorrow. It is Fast Track to Success. Our career ed folks will be hosting 4:30 to 5:30 tomorrow's last spotlight session. We will be hosting, or actually sticking around for another 30 minutes for some questions that we're seeing pop in through the Q&A. Erica, did you want to go over? I believe some of them are, let's see, pertaining, oh, you got some there. So folks, if you have any questions, there is a Q&A option box on the bottom. Perfect. I think we are seeing some questions come in. So can this, webinar be sent to us? Yes. So all the folks that have registered for today's session and actually any session they attended this week, we will be emailing a link with all the recorded videos.